Good morning, everyone. This is week, there's only 1 week of programming basics, but it's day 4 of programming basics. We are on the morning lecture. We're going to go over more loops. All right, so there's 3 parts to this lecture this morning. So we're going to go over breaks. All right, so breaks are going to be pretty easy to understand. I don't think anything too hard there. Looping through arrays, that's the most important part. So that's what we really want to pay attention. And then we have while loops. While loops are also really important, but it's not something that you're going to be grilled on your test. So don't worry about mastering while loops if you don't understand it thoroughly. For loops are the way to stick with that. Learning, that's the way to go when looping for now. But we have while loops, and if you can master it today, awesome. So let's get started. I will turn to the platform where I will be I'll be getting this information. So let's go to here. I am on week 1, day 4 on loops 2 in introduction to programming, below loops 1 where I was yesterday. And I'm on this part of the page here. And we have here in front of us 2 blocks of code. The first one has a variable called length of 9999999. Okay, so we have a for loop that says we start at 0, var I equals 0. And while I is less than length. So length is a number. And we are going to want to iterate, well, not iterate, but increase I until we get to that high number, right? And we're going to console log hello every single time. So this is a really, it's going to be a long process, right? All this example wants to show on this page here is that you can have a loop go through something, through a process of increasing I until it reaches that length. But you can actually break the loop through this keyword break. If at any point you reach this word, break, here, just like a return, you need to stop there. You need to stop at that point and exit the loop. So let's see this in trace so we can get a good visual. Okay, there's no point in me writing this out on the blackboard. This one we'll have to see on trace. So let's take a look. We're learning about for loops, so let's see it actually loop through. Okay, so I'm going to paste it in trace. Here we have our code. This here is our code. This above is not our code. Okay, so we have var length 9999. I don't know how many nines that is. Maybe 9 nines? Yes, 9 nines. And for var I equals 0, while I is less than length, increase I. So increase I over and over until we increase from 0 to that large number. Now we have an if statement in the for loop. And every time we are looping through, we're going to ask, is I greater than 10? If I is greater than 10, then we break. So that means we will exit our loop. And so we want to see how our break will be handled, how these console logs will be either logged or not. So let's take a look how a break works. Okay. So here we go. Do you guys like this one or Python Tutor better?
I prefer Python Tutor.
Yeah, it's a little bit more straight to the point.
Yeah. And I like the T-charts a little bit more.
We'll use both. We'll use both. So, all right. So let's highlight our T-chart. Here we are. Here's our variables and values. We are going to step through this now. Okay. I can't keep it. I'm going to figure out how to wait to keep that. So let's see here. Var I equals 0. We have that length already defined there in our t-chart. Let's step through. Well, I is less than length. The 0 is obviously less than that number. So we are going to check if I is greater than 10. I is not greater than 10. So we move along to the next part within the for loop. We did this if statement check. Now we console log hello, because this is within the for loop. So we should see that now. Here's our first hello. So we do this 10 times, right? Because I is going to increase to 10, and that's when we're going to meet our if statement requirement. So how many hellos should we see?
10.
10, all right. So let's see 10 hellos. We're at 7, I is 7, I is 8. And here we are. I is 9. Okay.
9, right? Or the 10?
Well, 10 is not greater than 10, so this was not going to pass either. So it has to be 11 or higher. So let's see. Yep. So another
So
yeah, it has to be greater than 10. So it has to be 11.
11.
Yep, you're good. All right. So I is 10. So let's see now. Now this one, no, wait, not yet. Now, okay, I is 11. So we should see this. When I is 11, this is going to be true. I is 11, 11 is greater than 10. So we hit the brake and we exit the for loop. Do you see how it did not continue to make I 12, 13, 14, and so forth? You see, as soon as it hits the brake, it exits the for loop. We know the for loop begins here and ends here. When we click the beginning, it highlights the end. So then it goes straight out of the for loop and console logs goodbye. So we should see this log next. And there we go. Goodbye.
So there's 11 good hellos and 1 goodbye.
Yes, you have to count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's count them. Now, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You're right. 10, 11. There we go. Right. Because we hit 11.
Because they start from 0, right?
And we start from 0. Yeah, and we start from 0. All right, so that's a good visualization for how the break works. All it does is break the loop that you're currently in. When you reach it, you break. A return would, let's see how a return would work, just so that we see the difference. Let's run this. We learned about returns yesterday in our afternoon lecture on functions. We learned that they break the code and give a value to the function. So we'll see this run. Get to it's like watching the grass grow. Okay. 3 and then 4. 5. Or it's like playing bingo on a Friday night with. Anyways, all right, here we are, 9, and here we're getting to 10. So we know that 11, we are going to hit it, 11. And if I is greater than 10, now we are at 11. So we should see this now going to the return. Let's see what the return does. Return. Play. Return exits, and then we see it. Oh, did I rewind by accident? Did I just start? Hold it. Here we go. Okay, 11, 9, 10, 11. Return, we're gonna hit the return, there we are. And then we finish. Okay, return finishes the entire process, but it doesn't do what the break does, which is finish the for loop and then continue where we see this here. Continue, console log goodbye. Slight difference there.
So I got a quick question. So when you put return, will the operation continue to go until it hits the 99, whatever that is, like the 9 million or
When
9,000?
it hits return, it stops. It doesn't hit this big number.
Okay.
But the only difference is when we had a break, it exited the for loop and then it continued to run the code below it, which was this goodbye console log.
Okay. So we'll never get to the goodbye console log, right?
Right. Let's see this in a slightly different form just to solidify this. So let's write a function, and we'll call it loop through. Okay. And then here's the beginning of the function. I'll paste everything inside. Copy. Paste. All right, so let's delete this. All right, so we have our function loop through. What we want to do is now invoke this function. So we're going to have to call it by its name. So right now you see it's grayed out. That means it exists, but it's not being called on. So it's sitting on the bench. We need to actually call its name to get it into action. We'll say loop through. And then we have the parentheses as well. We have to include this to make the call to the name. Did I spell that correctly? Loop through. Oh no, there's something wrong with my I see what I did wrong. Let me start.
The loop through needs to go after the bracket on 23, I think.
The bracket on 23, what does that close?
That closes the function.
Oh, I see.
So
Yeah.
you're still in the function.
Yep, you're right. So this is an important lesson as well. Okay, I made a mistake, but we can learn from this. What I did was I called the name of the function inside the function. So it never gets called. It's still unhighlighted. Even though I called the name and I put the parentheses here, I'm not doing it properly because I have to call its name outside of itself. So let's cut it out of here. We know this is the end to the function because when I click the beginning, the end highlights. So I have to call the function outside of the function itself for this to be valid. Okay, it has to come from outside. Not sure who caught that, but good job. All right, so let's see now this in action. Is there a way to format this? There we are. Okay, right-click Format Document will make it easier to read for you. And so all I have here is the same thing. All I've done now is put it in a function. So we can see this work slightly differently now, from a different perspective. And I said I would go to Python Tutor, so I'll go to that next. So here we are. We have the function call. So it goes to this first. No, it reads the variable length. There we go. So we got the length. That was what was at the top. And then it goes to this here. It ignores everything written here because there's no instruction to do this until it's called. So then we continue, make the call. So then we start the process. We enter the function, we start the for loop. We get our hellos console logged. So let's see what happens when we get to 11. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. And we want to see what happens with this return. Does this console log goodbye when we hit that return? Let's see. 10. We're going to get to 11. Are we going to get that console log? Return? No, we don't. As you can see here, the return stops the function. It stops the function. Let's look at the break now. Just to return to the break, and then we'll finish up the break. All right, let's look at this break. I'm going to run this code now. Here we go. All right. Okay, so we start the loop. And we're going to see if we console log goodbye when we hit this break. We're going to see how it's different from a return. So we get to 4. Just want to like count super fast, like when you're a kid counting hide and go seek, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10. And as soon as we hit 11, we're going to see how it's different. All right, so getting to 11, here we are, 11. If 11 is greater than 10, yes, it is. And we're going to hit this break. So now we're going to see what happens next. We console log goodbye next, because all this break does is break us out of this for loop. Okay, the return breaks us out of the function. The return exits the function, the break exits the for loop. So we're still within the function. This console log goodbye is still within this function. So this break, what it does is it exits the for loop that it's in. This is a for loop that we are in right here, this block of code. This blue highlight is still within function loop through. Because if I highlight the beginning, the end is right here. So we're still in here. So we're going to still log goodbye. Okay, let's take a poll to see how we understand how a break works and how it's different than a return.
I have a question, Josh.
Yes.
So a return outside of a function ends the whole program, right, when it reaches it?
A return doesn't really work well outside of a function. That's why
Okay.
I had to create a function. So
Okay.
we get a better idea. Okay. So a break exits the for loop. A return exits the function. The function is this scope here, these brackets. So a return exits this whole block of code. A break exits the for loop that it's in. So we have to look at the block that the for loop creates. All right. If I click this beginning one, it highlights this bottom one. See that little rectangle around it? So I know this is the for loop block of code. So break is going to exit out of this area and continue on to what's next after. So we have that console log goodbye. All right. So let's move on to the most important part of our lecture today, looping through arrays. And in order to get the information that I'm going to present here, I'm going to go to the platform. Not this part. This is the while loop. I'm going to drag it from my other screen here. So here we are. We are going to for loops and arrays. This one here, for loops and arrays. So under loops 3, for loops and arrays. So this is where you can find this information that I'm going to use in the lecture. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a for loop that will loop through an array. Okay, so looping through arrays. So let's create an array that we can loop through. So I'm going to create a variable. So we'll say var r. All right, this is the name of our variable, equals 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Okay, this is our starting point. We have an array. What I want us to do is to read through this array and print each index in the array. So for example, this is index 0, right? We always start with index 0 being the first number we read through. So 0, index at 1, index at 2, index at 3, and the last index is 4. Okay, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I want to index through each point in this array and print each value that I see. So how can we do that? We're going to have to loop through an array. So let's create a for loop as we usually do. We'll say, no, let's stick with this one, yeah. So for, and then we say var I for index equals 0. And while I is less than, what we want to say now is less than a number that we need to stop at. So what number should I stop at to loop through this whole entire array?
Could you put I less than or equal to the length of the array?
Say that again. I less than or equal to what?
The length of the array.
Okay. All right. So yeah, that's pretty close. That's it. What we're gonna do is r dot length. So I is less than r dot length. All right. So this one here, dot length
Is 5, right?
is 5. So what is r dot length? When we count the length of an array, we count from 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, it's saying while I is less than
10.
While I is less than 5.
Okay.
Because the r dot length, we count from 1. The indexes, we count from 0. That's the position in the array. When we're just counting the length itself, the system, it was built so that it counts from 1. Okay. Don't ask why. We are just going to use it this way for now. We'll learn it, and then we're going to work with it. So let's continue. All right. So we have a point that we're going to stop. We have the r dot length, and using r dot length helps us because we may want to loop through an array that we don't know how long it is. Remember when I was counting the hellos, I was counting 1, 2, 3, I miscounted 1. Maybe you have a large array, and instead of counting each index position yourself, you, the human, are going to make a mistake, right? We want the computer to do it. Most likely the computer's not going to make a mistake. So we know that it can read and find the length itself. We don't have to give it a definite number like 5. We're just going to say, read the array, you give me the length, and we are going to use that as the endpoint of our for loop. So we are also going to say I plus plus, right? Because that's going to increase I. So we have our for loop. And we are going to console log. In order to print each value, I'm going to have to console log the array bracket I. Because as I increases, I don't need the index value that I is, like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I need what these index values, what their values are, not the index itself. So we need 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. We don't need the index number 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That would be, all right, if I wanted to just write the index number, it would look something like this. I'm just going to put this as a comment. So we would console log I. I itself is the index position. But what we need is the array at the index position. So we say R at I. And I is going to change as it increases. So it starts at 0. R at 0 is what? 2, right? R at 1 is 4. R at 2 is 6. So as I is going up, 0, 1, 2, 3, we're getting the different values that their index positions are pointing to. So let's go ahead and T-diagram this one. I know we're running out of space. It's getting a little cluttered here, but let's...
You can do the top left.
Yeah, I'll T-diagram at the top left, and I'll console log down here. So var val. So let's do this for loop. All right, so we have our R. We'll do that R. That's going to have to be T-diagram 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So that's our array. We make note of that. And then we go into this for loop. All right, we read for var I equals 0, var I. Okay. So let's say I. And it's 0 to start with. Okay, so 0. And while I is less than r dot length we said was 5 because we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yes.
So while I is less than 5, it's less than 5, so we enter. And we say console log R at I. So this array at I, which is 0, because we are at 0, so we see here this points to 2. So then we console log here 2. That's our first console. And as you can see, we're going to get to the end of this list by increasing I. So now we increase I again, and I becomes 1. And so now we move our eyes to the center and we ask, is I less than array.length? Yes. It's 5. So then we enter, we console log R at I. Did we have a question? Okay, no. All right, so then let's continue. We console log R at I. R at I is, we say, this one is pointing to 4. So then let's console log that 4. We increase I again. And then what we get is I is now 2. Is 2 less than 5? Yes. So then we enter again. Console log R at 2. All right. So then let's do that. R at 2 is 6. So we console log 6, and I'm going to start a new column here because I ran out of space. And so we increase I again. And when we increase I, we get to 3. 3 less than 5, yes. So then we enter. Console log R at I. R at I is 3 right now. So R at I is going to be 8. So then we go to 8. All right, so then the last value here is 10. So we wanted to increase I so that we can get to that 10. So let's see here. I goes to 4. And 4 is less than 5. So we enter here, console log R at I. All right, let's do that. R at 4. So then we console log 10. Increase I one more time. Now we increase to 5. Is 5 less than array.length? No, 5 is not less than 5. 5 is equal to 5, not less than 5. So then we stop. This is no longer true. This is no longer true, and this here on my right is our result. We have console logged every index position, every value in this array. By going through and using I while it's less than array.length. Okay? Array.length. All right, so now's a good time to take a poll.
I have a question.
Yes.
So could you go back to the thing you were doing?
Oh, I just erased it. Sorry. We'll build a new one. But we have a visual here. Do you want to just work with this one?
I just wanted to ask, for the variable I, how come we always have to go one more, even though it's not true, if that makes any sense?
Okay. So great question. That was going to be my next example. So great segue. The question is, why do we go to the very end of the array.length, if the length goes past the index numbers, right? Is that essentially your question?
Or yeah, I just want to know why we go like 5, even though like 5, like, variable I equals 5, even though the array length is 5 as well. So I
Right.
just want to know why in our T chart do we need to write the 5 as well?
Because the I has to increase to 5 in order for this to no longer be true, in order to exit and break out of the loop.
Okay, I see. I understand now.
Okay,
Thank
awesome. And we can change this up a little bit. I misunderstood your question, but I'll still use that as a segue. So what I want to show is that you can say, while I is less than or equal to r dot length minus 1. Right? Because what is r dot length minus 1?
It's 4.
Right? And when I is equal to 4, let's see how this runs. Okay, so we start at the beginning. We get note of our array, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. When I starts at 0, so here's our I at 0. Console log, oh, this one's going to console log I as well. Okay, I didn't comment this one out, so we're going to see 2 sets of console logs now. I now gets printed because I is 0, and then R at I. So the array at position 0 is 2. So we're going to see that next. 2. Then we increase I. I is now 1. So then we enter because 1 is less than array length dot minus 1, which is 4. So then we console log I. console log 1, and then we console log array at I. Array at I, array at 1. We see here that one block is 4. So then we console log 4. Increase I again. I is going to go to 2. So it's going 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So here we go. Console log I. All right, we got that 2. Now, R at I is going to be 6. There it is. 6. I increases to 3. Print the 8. And then I increases to 4. Now, here's where I want to stop. Is I being 4 less than or equal to R dot length minus 1? Yes, yes. Why? Because I is 4, R dot length is 4, R dot length minus 1 is 4, so 4 is equal to 4. 4 is equal to 4, so then we can enter. And then we enter. So we console log I, 4, and then R at I, which is 10. That 4 block has the 10, so then here we go. Now we're going to increase I again. So I becomes 5. And is 5 less than or equal to R dot length minus 1?
No.
No. So then we will finish the for loop. Go to the end. And that's it. Same for loop, only slight difference, right? All we did was make it less than or equal to R dot length minus 1. The other way to write it is to say I is less than, not less than or equal to, while I is less than R dot length. Okay, 2 different styles of writing a for loop. This way to iterate through an array. Okay, so let's do something fun. Let's do it in reverse. So I'm going to write the same array. So let's write it. Looping through an array. Okay, so we have our array. Let me move the windows around. Okay, here we are. We have our array. Give me a second to put this thing on. All right, here we are. Var R equals 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Now, instead of looping from left to right, I want to loop from this direction now, from right to left. How can we write a for loop to print all the array values from right to left? How can we do this now?
You have to use negative number.
Okay, let's start with the for loop. We know we need that, right? Sorry, I didn't hear the answer there though. So where do we want to start now?
So
Wouldn't you want to start at dot length and then -1 each time, each loop?
Each loop? So we want to start at, so you're close.
Or
Not-
sorry, at dot length -1, and then -1 each loop.
Yes, exactly. All
Yeah.
right. So what is this position right here? What is this one?
-1.
Right, it's R dot length -1, right? So this one, I'll just write it in parentheses so we have it as a hint. This one is, oh, my pen just dropped on me. Okay, come on, pen. Maybe if I use a zoom tool and try to save this board. Can I draw now? Yes. All right. Okay. This one is saved it. R dot length minus 1. Let me undo that. Write that better. Okay, come on. All right. Come on. All right. Thank you for bearing with me. I want to write that a little better for you guys so you can see clear. R dot length minus 1. All right, so this is this position, R dot length minus 1. So this is where we want to start. So let's start there. Var I equals R dot length minus 1. Okay, so then where's our end point? Where's our end point?
0.
0, right? So this is index 0. So while what? So someone give me the next step.
Like,
var I is greater than
0.
Exactly, greater than 0. Very close, Laro. I saw your answer in the chat. So we need the greater than sign. We know that reading left to right, when the sign is on the open end, left to right, that means greater than, right? So we have to get this order. Sometimes we'll miss an answer on the test just because we didn't read the greater than or less than sign correctly, right? So you can use notes to check yourself here. So this is, while I is greater than 0, what are we going to do?
I minus minus.
Yes.
It's minus.
Okay. And so now let's console log R at
R dot.
I.
Yeah.
R at I. So this is saying with this bracket here, square brackets,
Should
R,
it be R is greater than or equal, or I is greater than equal to 0?
when I reaches 0, we
It
still
should go through the loop
Yes.
and
Yes.
log it, right?
Yes, good catch. So we're going to put an equal sign while I is greater than or equal to 0, because when I is 0, we still want this to log 2, right? We still want this to qualify and enter in console log I when I is 0. So yes, excellent, good catch. Thank you for that. Now let's go ahead and continue. All right, let's do a little T diagramming. I don't want to do this whole thing. Oh, let's do it. Why not? All right, so let's do it. I won't draw as much, but we can do it. So we have var I equals R dot length minus 1. So let's write just I. I is equal to R dot length. What's R dot length? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minus 1 is 4. So I starts at 4. Is I greater than or equal to 0?
No.
No?
Yes.
Yes, because I is 4, 4 is greater than 0. So then if this is true, we enter. So then let's enter console log R at I. So let's console log this. What's R at I? R at 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's write that there so we can all have that visual. Okay, r at index I, which is starting at 4, is 10. So then we log 10 first. All right, once we do this, we decrease I. So I becomes 3. And then we ask again, is I greater than or equal to 0? Is 3 greater than 0? Yes. So then we enter and we console log r at I. So let's do that. R at I, which is currently 3, that's going to be 8. All right, stopped working, but I figured out the fix. All right, there we go. Okay. And so then the next step we have is to, after we console log, decrease I. So let's do that. I becomes 2. So now we say, is I being 2 greater than or equal to 0? Yes, 2 is greater than 0. If this is true, then we enter. Once we enter, we see we have a console log, r at I being 2. So let's check. We need to console log 6. Let's do that. 6. And then we go ahead and decrease I again. So let's do that. I goes to be 1. I'll write this in the line below. Okay. So now that I is 1, is I greater than or equal to 0? Yes, because 1's greater than 0. So then we enter again, console log r at I. I is 1, so we check what position 1 is. All right, so then we need to console log 4. And then lastly, we decrease I one last time. We decrease to 0, so let's do that. And is 0 greater than 0? No, but is 0 equal to 0? This is the equal sign. Yes, so then we enter. So then we enter, and now we console log r at I. So lots, yep, exactly. We get the 2 in there. And then we continue. We decrease I again. I minus minus. So then what's 0 minus 1?
-1.
Negative
Negative
1.
1.
Right? There we go. Negative 1. Is negative 1 greater than or equal to 0? No. No. So then at this point, we break. We no longer continue, and we've logged everything in our array from right to left now. Using array.length minus 1 as our starting point and 0 as our ending point. All right, now before I erase this, go ahead and ask questions so I don't accidentally take away an example.
So basically, like for this one, like compared to the other one, where we're going from left to right, we switch the array length and for the starting value, and then the ending value. That's really what we just did, right?
Yes, exactly. All we did is switch the end and beginning point and how I should move. Should I increase or decrease? Since we started at the end here, and that was a high number, we decrease. If we start at a low number like 0, then we would increase. Okay, so now's a good time to take a poll. Am I good to clear the board?
Yeah, on my end.
Okay, I'll take that silence as a yes, and oh, there's some drawings that I made by accident. Okay, I need to I don't know how I did that. All right, let's launch a poll. How well we understand how to loop through an array from the right end to the left, from the end to the beginning. Okay, now we've gone over for loops, how to loop through an array. The last type of loop I want to introduce today is the while loop. The while loop. This is a different type of loop than a for loop, but we can see how this while loop will work. And in order to see this, let's go to our platform, go to loops 3, and then we go here to the while loop section. I'm going to grab our information for today from this page and this page, the one right below it, thinking about building a for loop and a while loop. So I'm going to be taking from here to draw examples on the board if you want to review this later. Okay, so what is a while loop? A while loop is a different type of loop. And let me pull up the board here so we can write some while loops in T diagram. All right, here we are. All right, while loops. Let's get started. So what's a while loop? Let's write it. Let's just write it and then we'll explain it. So here we are. We have while. And then we have this area that we're going to say this is going to be just like a variable or a placeholder or something here to give some sense to what we're doing. So while this condition is true, we are going to do this. All right, so this is how a while loop works. It checks, while this condition is true, we are going to do this. So for example, while the sun is up, I will continue to work. Or while the weather is great, we'll continue to have our picnic outside. So you continue to do something, you continually do something while something is true. So how is this similar to an if statement? How is it similar to an if statement?
If something is true or if something is false, it's going to play out with a loop.
Yes, exactly. An if statement asks, while this is true, then you do this, right? But it does not continually do it while it's true. This is different in that this will continue to run while this is true. So it continues to check. Maybe inside this do something section, you have a condition to change something, right? So while the sun is up, continue to have a picnic, and then you can also say make sun slightly go down, and so you can slightly decrease the sun until it's no longer up, and that's no longer true, and then you would stop. So you can control variables inside the while loop, just like when a for loop you would increase or decrease something, the index, you can increase or decrease while something is true to make this continually run until you met that condition that you're looking for. All right, do this while the condition is met. Okay, so let's write one out that would do something more interesting. Okay, so let's refresh our board. And I'll say while loops. All right. The next example. We are going to write a while loop, but before we do that, we're going to write a variable var num, just for number, equals 0. All right, we start with a variable and its value is 0. And we can say here now, while num is less than or equal to 5, what I want you to do is console log num okay, and I also want you to increase num. So we'll say num plus plus. So let's just write some semicolons here, just so we know these are separate lines. All right, so let's go ahead and T-diagram this. Our console, and I'll move our T-diagram here. Okay, so let's read this now. Reading from top to bottom. Top to bottom. First thing we read is var num equals 0. So let's go ahead and write that. Num is 0. All right, the next thing we read is this while loop. While num is less than or equal to 5. All right, so is num being 0 less than or equal to 5? Yes. Num is 0, 0 is less than 5. So while this is true, if this is true, we're going to enter and do what it says. So let's do that. We console log num. Num is 0, so let's do that. 0. And then num plus plus. So then we increase num to 1. And then we check again. The while loop continues to check to see if something is true. It just continues. Is num less than or equal to 5? Num is 1. Is it less than or equal to 5? Yes. So then let's console log it. Console log num. And
2.
Yep, exactly. All right, and then we check again. Is num less than or equal to 5?
Yes.
All right, so then let's console log it.
2. 3.
Check again. 3 less than or equal to 5? Yes. So we enter. Console log num. Increase it. Move to 4.
Still move it down.
Yep. 4 is less than or equal to 5. So we continue console log num.
Then add again.
And add it again. Oh, I think I didn't add it last time, right? So we console logged it already. Did we add it? No. So then we have to add it.
5.
5. Is 5 less than or equal to 5?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes, 5 is equal to 5. So then we console log num, console log 5.
And then
Increase it again. We increase num, so then in our memory, num is 6. And then we ask, is num less than or equal to 5? No.
no. And then you don't log 6.
Right. We don't enter. We don't enter if this is true.
Okay.
So if this is true, do not enter. I mean, if no longer true, then do not enter. So then we finished. And that's how a while loop works. A little bit easier to read than a for loop, right? A little bit easier. And a while loop is really useful. This is a super useful tool. I don't think anything on the test involves any while loops, but there are 3 questions on the test where you can answer, write your own code. You can use a while loop if you feel confident using it. Use a for loop if you feel more confident using that. You can accomplish similar things with a for loop and a while loop.
So we have to write our own code, like so it's no so we make up our own numbers and stuff like that, you saying?
3 out of the 10 questions on the test, you'll have to write your own code. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start another poll. How well do we understand while loops? Are we able to use notes on the test, or yes, you're able to use notes on the test. So I'm going to relaunch the poll. How well do we feel about while loops?
It's basically the same as for loops, just a little more simple, I
We're-
think.
We're going to look at the difference. We're going to look at the difference. So what I want to go to is this one here. Okay. So let's see the difference between how a for loop and a while loop could work. So we have a for loop here. Let's do it on Python tutor so that we get a little bit faster.
Seems
Alright.
one of the big differences is that in the for loop, the variable is defined within the for loop, and
Yes,
the while loop is defined outside of it.
exactly. Exactly. So in a for loop, the variable, the starting point, is defined within. So let's see this execution. All right, well, I starts at 0, and while I is less than 5, we're going to increase I and console log hello each time. So we should see 5 hellos, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 hellos here. And then we finished. So this is a for loop. We're used to seeing this by now. Let's see now the difference between this and a while loop. Where was it? Oh, it's here. The only thing here is that I need to change the code a little bit. So I'm going to make count to be, I'm going to reverse this. I'm going to start at 0. I'm going to increase it. And I'm going to say, well, count is less than 5. All right, so now we have our count to be 0. Yeah, we started at count being 0, and while count is less than 5, we increase count and console log hello. Okay, so we get our first hello. We get our second hello. We're increasing count, as you can see here. 4, 5. And we finish. We printed 5 hellos with the while loop, just like we would with the for loop. So very similar. The only difference is now the variable is outside the while loop. So it says this variable is accessible to other parts of the code, not just to the while loop itself. The for loop's variables, that index in the for loop, is only available to that block that the for loop entails. Like that whole block that the for loop begins and ends with, I is relevant within there, but it's not accessing a variable outside of itself. It has its own internal starting point or endpoint wherever you are creating I and the end. Okay, the endpoint is defined at the beginning in this while loop. Okay, not too much about while loops on your test, so I don't want to overwhelm you with this. But that brings us to the end of our lecture. And so now I want to wrap up by talking about what we should expect, what we've learned so far. Okay, so we need to be able to take our test this afternoon. In order to do that, in order to qualify to take our test, we want to check that we've done all the core assignments so that we were eligible to take the test. We have to do this Discord assignment easy, VS Code assignment, that's pretty easy as well. Really what the hard thing is to get to Algo App level 7. Okay, so you need to be able to get to Algo App level 7. And if you can get to 12 and the challenges, then that's going to like boost your probability of passing the test if you can get to 12 and the challenges. Okay, so go ahead.
Skipping 6.
Yeah, it doesn't have an assignment for 6, but you have to pass level 6 in order to get to level 7. And we're just asking you to submit the completion for level 7.
Okay. And then you're saying if we can get to 12, that'd be good, but then that would mean we would have to do 8 through 11 as well, right?
Yes, exactly. So push yourself as much as you can. Don't burn yourself out before the test so that you don't have any like brain power left. But pace yourself so that you can, prep for the test as much as you can until you have to take it.
I was doing 12 like this morning without having to take 9 through 11.
Oh, really? You can skip ahead?
Yeah, I just checked it. You can skip ahead.
Wow. I didn't think maybe they changed it from when I was a student. Okay. Well then
it's probably not recommended, I guess.
Yeah, what I recommend is you do all the levels up to 12. All the levels up to 12. That it increases in difficulty each level. And so you don't want to skip to the very last one if you are going to struggle with that more than you would if you would have done each level step by step to build your skill up. Okay, so I will be checking in your guys' rooms to make sure we're doing all right. We're understanding any Algo app challenges that we are struggling with. All right, so don't be shy to ask, hey, I don't get it. I know you explained it, so many times, but still it's all right. All right, so that's what I'm here for. Let's figure out what you're not understanding as far as variables, if statements, else statements, for loops, functions, returns, and the different operators. All right, I'm going to take about 10 minutes to get this video up onto YouTube so you guys can use this as review for the test if you need as well. Okay, so I'll try to get that up as soon as possible. And yeah, good luck on your guys' test. So let's go ahead and end the lecture. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, if you think of a question later on, you can always ask.
Do we have to wait to take the test, or?
What we're going to do is meet at 2. I'm going to go over a couple of rules on how the exam is going to work. And then take any questions that you want. If you have a pressing question that you want to ask right before the test to clarify something, we can use that time for that as well. And we'll start the test sometime after 2. So maybe if we have no questions, we'll start, as soon as possible, 2:05, 2:10. If everything, if we have some questions, we can take some time to review a little bit before we start the exam. But we want to start the exam sometime after 2. It's a 90-minute exam. And I'll explain the process when we get to that point.
So will we know if we passed after we took it, or will there be like a delay in between?
Yes. So I'll reinstate this right before the exam. So what we're going to do is break out into our individual rooms. You're going to post on Discord once you finish your exam, once you've submitted it and you're ready to be graded. You can just say on Discord, please help me in room, whatever room number you're in. And then either I or Kobe will jump into your room and grade your exam with you live. So you'll know exactly when you're done with your exam what your grade is. We'll grade it with you live. Yes, it's 10 questions. You need 8 out of 10 to pass. I don't want to answer too many questions and spoil the test. Okay. But it's, you guys are able to do it if you're going to get to level 12 on the Algo app. Should be no problem. Okay, so get to that level. Okay, let's end the recording now.